Hello everybody, my name is Stefan and thank you for watching Wood, Nail and Hammer. So after a recent breadband project, I'm left with these two beautiful pieces of oak wood, and they've been standing around here for quite a while now. I'm thinking it's about time I built something with it. So I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and I decided I'm going to build a violin. Me, myself, my other self, and I said, breeding cats! Dude, you can't build a violin, you don't even know what a violin looks like, you don't even have all the tools. What? A violin? Are you out of your mind, bro? Are you talking the old rusty garden gate sounding stuff people used before they invented electrical guitar? Nightmare! Have you ever seen a violin? Can you play one? It's gonna crack, it's gonna break, it's gonna end up on somebody's shelf, it's gonna sound crap. No! Really? You wanna make a noise? Put a V6 in your car, dude. It's gonna be an ornament. Train brakes. Hit your finger with a hammer, it's the same thing. So I carefully reconsidered and come to think of it, I think we should build a violin. When building a violin, the first thing you'll need is a mold. So some people prefer to order theirs online, other people like me prefer to make their own out of some scrap wood lying around. Little did I know, making your own mold is kind of a job on its own. This is what it looks like. You simply trace the shape of the mold on a piece of wood, cut it out with your jigsaw or bandsaw, sand it down to the line. On the inside I've got some corner blocks for joining the linings. On the outside we've got clamping blocks supporting the shape, and the holes in the middle are simply for clamping purposes. You'll also notice that I slightly adjusted the shape of the violin right over there. When you're late for an appointment, never say that you got lost. Rather say your alarm clock didn't go off, you wandered off, you had an unexpected phone call, you got stuck in a traffic jam. Don't say you got lost. Likewise, when building a violin, there's also some things you never say. You don't say you didn't have enough tools, you don't say you don't have the know-how, and you never say you didn't have enough wood. Rather say it's your own design. So this is my design. I had to actually reshape the mold in the violin because one of the pieces are not wide enough to accommodate the true shape. Is it going to work? I don't know. Is it going to sound nice? Also don't know. I'm not a professional luthier, I've never built a violin before. Let's see this happen. So now I'm going to start gluing the blocks to the mold, and I'm using a hot glue gun. These blocks are just going to be glued to the mold for the purpose of shaping the linings, after which we're going to remove it again. Now cut the strips for the sides. They're about maybe 1.5 millimeters thick, and now we're going to start bending it. So for bending the wood we use a hot iron, and this one is extremely hot, so I guess we need to be careful. We're also going to use some water to soak the wood. Make it a bit more elastic. And then we're going to start bending it on the hot iron. This is how we do the C shape. Now we just need to cut off the excess. Now I'm going to start gluing the sides to the corner jointing blocks right over here, and it's very important to note that no glue is being used to the side that runs along the mold. We're only going to apply glue to the curves of the corner jointing blocks, and for that purpose I'm going to use standard white wood glue. We're going to use this round shaped clamp block to keep it into position. Also important to use a wet cloth afterwards, just to make sure there's no signs of any excess glue running at the top or the bottom. Okay, so now I've got glue and clamps on all the corner joints, all the sides are intact, and this is what it looks like. Now we can see it's still a little bit damp from the bending. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave it inside the oven, temperature not exceeding 80 degrees Celsius, with the door slightly open, just for drying purposes, and then hopefully the shape will set. I've left the workpiece to dry in the oven for approximately 3 to 4 hours, and afterwards I left it for another 2 days in the clamps. I have also now prepared the interior linings. They get shaped exactly the same way in the sides, and now we're going to install them. I've actually done both sides, top and bottom so far, but we're only going to install the top side since the mold needs to still be removed. If we actually install both sides now, then we won't be able to remove the mold. The interior linings are approximately 1 centimeter in width, and they've been shaped to more or less fit every corner between, or every rounding between the corner blocks, serving two purposes. Firstly, it creates a bigger gluing surface, and secondly, it strengthens the structure of your violin. Right, so now I've got it all clamped up. You can see there's some spaces where you need to use a tighter clamp for the purpose of shaping the linings correctly. Other places the washing pinch seems to be sufficient. So this is the piece I'm going to use for the neck and the scroll. And what I've done now, I've split the block in two. So I'm going to glue them together now to create a block that's big enough to accommodate the neck and the scroll. I don't know if this has been done before. I've actually never seen anybody doing this. So once again, I'm going to use standard white wood glue, clamp them together in advance, so later on when we want to make the neck and scroll, it will be ready. Since I've never built a violin before, I also take tips and advice from other luthiers, and this is definitely one I'm going to do. Right here we've got the top and bottom plate boards, and as you can see there, I clearly indicated a margin of approximately 4 centimeters from each side, creating somewhat of a rectangular shape in the middle of the board. Now, for the purpose of reducing the amount of carving that's going to be done by hand, I'm going to cut some angles on the table saw, fitting those margins. Something similar to a raised panel. Those of you who's done a raised panel before would be quite familiar with this process. Alright, so now I've adjusted the height and angle of the blade of the table saw, as well as the position of the rib fence, and I'm ready to do the cut now. On the workpiece you'll note that I indicated which side of the workpiece is going to be facing the top, and it's very important to note that that side is going to be facing towards the rib fence while we're performing the cut. Alright, so now we basically have something that starts looking like a violin plate. Got some shape there. Not really worried too much about the burning marks right now. I'm sure we should be figuring out a way to work around that. So after we did the angled cuts on the front side of the plate, I'm now going to turn the plate around. Please note that this is the bottom plate, so I'm going to turn it around face down, work on the back side, and since this is going to be the bottom plate now, I've also marked a mold which side is going to be the top, so clearly we're going to use the bottom side then on the bottom plate. And now we can use this mold with the sides as a template. And there we have the proper outlining of the shape of the plate, and now I'm going to use the jigsaw to cut it out. And what you want to do at this point in time is to just cut next to the line, not really on the line, but just maybe leaving 1 or 2 millimeters from the line, in order to allow the top and bottom plate to overlap the sides. So I found myself some online arching templates. I printed them out and cut them down to the line. These are basically used for the arching of the top and the bottom. While you're doing the carving, this is the long arch, this is the cross arch. so I guess it's about time we do some carving. So this is the bottom plate, and we've now shaped it with a jigsaw, and I'm going to start doing the arching and thicknessing. I'm going to start my way from the inside, do a bit from the inside and then work my way around the outside, coming back to the inside again, basically to get the correct shape and thickness from both sides. At the end it looks something like this. You can see we've got some sort of a hollow inside and a belly on the outside. If you look at the inside, I don't know if you can see clearly there, I've drawn a thickness map according to the templates that you can download from the internet, and inside every block I've written some measurements. To start this out, I'm going to use the router machine to work according to the thicknesses that I wrote inside each block. Some people prefer to use the drill press. I personally prefer the router machine. Okay, so there we are. And this is what it should look like by now. We have now basically used the router machine just to highlight the approximate depth of the curve, the inside curve, and from here on we'll be using hand chisels just to curve the 90-degree angles to make a nice rounding. So for those of you thinking I didn't really do all that sanding by hand, you are absolutely right. I cheated. I maneuvered my way around a belt sander. I'm done with that now. So for you tough guys out there that knows how to operate a belt sander and willing to rub some skin off, go right ahead and have some fun. The rest of you, find yourself a little scrap piece of sanding belt and off you go. I'll see you next year. In the meantime, I found myself a lovely printed template on the F-holes, together with some measurements as to the exact location. I'm now going to trace them out on the top plate and then figure out a clever way to cut the F-holes. Some people prefer to drill a starting hole using an hacksaw to cut it out. I'm going to try drilling multiple holes with different sizes of drill bits, and then maybe just file it down to the line. So there's all the filing happening while you can see it. Or is it really? Of course it is. At this point in time I shaped this piece for the bass bar and this one for the sound post. I'll cut this one down to the correct length as soon as I know what it's going to be. That will be by the time of assembling the box. As for the bass bar, it will be glued to the belly plate. That's the one with the F-holes in. Facing from the front side, it will be located on the left hand side. That will be the right hand side on the inside, and then the sound post will be located somewhere opposite the bass bar, a couple of millimeters behind the bridge. Remember this piece? The glue is dry now, and I've used the planer to just plane the edges equally. So we've got a nice flush joint there. And I found this lovely template online for the scroll and the neck. I'm going to use this template, trace it out on the workpiece, that one on the side and the other one on the top, and then cut it out with a jigsaw. Afterwards, sand and file it down to the line. So if you're thinking bending the wood was kind of a hassle, it's about time for the real magic, carving the scroll. I've marked the lines on both sides where I'm going to do some relief cuts with the hacksaw, and then later on I'm going to use a chisel to do some carving. Those lines have been marked according to a template I've downloaded. It's very important to note that the first series of cuts are going to be done on the outer circle of the spiral. And then it's going to be followed by some carving and firing down to the line, and then followed by a second series of cuts on the inner circle. Very important while doing the first series of cuts not to enter the inner circle, otherwise you might end up with something else than a scroll, and then we have to call it our own design again. Check out this easily maneuverable mini vise. Didn't even know these guys exist. And they can be easily moved around from one workbench to another, making lots of hard jobs easy. I'm now going to start doing the relief cuts over this side. And it's very important to note that this line here tends to go deeper on this side of the scroll than the other side. So these cuts are not going to be made at a 90-degree angle. There you can see on the other side it's not quite as deep. This guy's name is Die Hard. You unroll it again, fold it in half, and you have the manual version of a belt sander. Remember Die Hard? This is his brother, Try Hard. This guy gets folded somewhat like an angle item, and then it fits nicely into the peg box, which you by now clean up with a chisel, and you get to simultaneously sand both sides as well as the bottom. I made this 4 little tuner pegs out of the off-cut oak wood, as well as the breech and the end pin. So I didn't have ebony for the fingerboard and the tuner pegs, but I do have a bottle of gel stain. Ebony. Don't tell. So it turns out the ebony is not the only thing I don't have. I also don't have a purfling. What I've done now is to draw a freehand pattern of the purfling position, and instead of installing the actual purfling, I'm going to use some masking tape together with the very same gel stain to create a similar looking purfling pattern. And once again I'm doing it freehand, as it seems that the tape is going to be a bigger headache than anything else. I have now carefully removed the mold in order to glue the remaining of the interior linings. But before I'll be adding the back plate, I'm just going to cut the dovetail joint for fitting the neck first. I finally have the neck in position. Unfortunately the dovetail joint wasn't as tight as I expected, so I had to use some screws to keep the neck in position. Hopefully that'll last. And up next is fitting the back plate as well as the sound post. Kind of a hectic thing to get these clamps on, but they're on. And now it's about sun drying time. I have now removed the clamps. The back is now properly glued on, and the sound post is in position. Unfortunately I won't be able to show you that one on the inside. I also did a couple of finishing touches, some sanding, and now it's time for the varnish. I'm going to do 3 coats of clear varnish and show you the result afterwards. Just to take note that I'm not going to varnish the fingerboard as well as the area where the fingerboard is going to be glued on, since the glue requires a properly clean and unfinished surface. Now it's getting close. The neck is glued. I'm going to leave it overnight to dry and take it from there. Needless to say, I'm super excited, and I must admit there were days I was wondering if this day would ever arrive, but it did. I'm all set up and ready to give it a go now. On the downside, unfortunately, the tuner pegs and the end pin I made previously proved to be not so successful. I might retry that in the not so distant future. In the meantime, I bought a standard set of tuner pegs together with the end pin, tailpiece, a set of strings. As for the ebony fingerboard, it is still right in there, together with the oak wood bridge. And it's the moment of truth. Thank you for watching this video, thank you for supporting. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe, turn on notifications, follow me on Facebook. Let me remind you once again, subscribing is totally free, it's just for the purpose of getting future notifications on posts and projects. That said, moment of truth. Warn the neighbours. Warn the neighbours.